The regular season is done. 25 rounds down. We have our top 8. Obviously, once again, I am your host, Tony Baxter. How are you doing tonight, mate? And for a Cowboys fan, welcome back to the top 8.
Mate, it's great. It's great to be here. It's finally over. Spring's around the corner, and let's get into it.
Obviously, like you said, we will jump straight into it. We will start with the Eels versus the Storm. It was a cracking game. The Eels did come out 22-14 winners. The possession, it was quite even, 53 to 47%. The completion rate are kind of the telling factors in this game, 84 to 75, 9 errors to 11 errors, and even run meters. Baxter, what were your thoughts on this game? Obviously, the Eels did secure a top 4 result with this. They now have the second chance, whereas the Storm face an elimination final versus their bogey team, as it has been the Canberra Raiders.
Yeah, I think I tipped Eels here to get the win over the Storm in this game on Thursday night. It was a good game. Are Eels here just to make up the numbers? Well, they've shown that they're not. It was, as a neutral, it didn't really faze me at all, but it was a good game to watch. And yeah, what were your thoughts?
Obviously, I think this scoreline kind of flatters Melbourne. I look at the game and I think the Melbourne would have walked in at halftime after a try to Dylan Brown and a penalty goal to Moses and gone, thank fuck we're only 8-0 down, because they were absolutely off their feet. Will Penasini then came out. Gufferson made a break, got the penalty. They scored shortly after. Micah Sivo scored in the 60th minute to all but seal the result. And then the Storm, they kind of turned it on for that last 14 minutes, but the result was already dead and buried. Good win by Eels. They're probably the only team on paper that player for player does match Penrith, so it's going to be an interesting round 1 matchup, but we will talk about that a bit later. I just think for Melbourne, we're starting to see how much they miss Pappenhausen. We saw how much they miss Jerome Hughes. He is named back in the lineup this week again. We'll get onto that a little bit later, but I think the Eels were a better team, and now Melbourne, like I said, have to go into that elimination game. But we'll move on to obviously the next game. It was the Dogs versus Manly to kick off. This one was an interesting one. I was at the SFS, and we'll talk about that a bit later. I looked at my phone. I had Dogs tipped, and I went, shit, it's 16-0 Manly. On the screen, you can see possession 53 to 47. Completion rate 80 to 67. That's abysmal. Errors 9 to 14. Run meters 1,518 for the Dogs to 1,367 to Manly. This is a good way for Manly to, I guess, put not a good way, but a good reason now to put the season behind them. It's done. It's dead. Whatever's going on behind closed doors now, they can finally turn around and try and figure this out in the off season. For the Bulldogs, obviously they say farewell to Jeremy Marshall-Kin after this game. Massive loss, but a massive result for obviously Matt Burton and co as they look to welcome in Serrato, Kikau, and co. But Baxter, what were your thoughts on the game? Is this just more dismal ending for Manly, or was it just a good fight back by the Dogs?
Nah, for people who didn't watch this game, and I don't think many did, this was in pouring rain. I know you you just said there that you're off to the new Allianz Stadium for the next game that we're going to talk about. It was just pouring rain at ANZ or whatever you want to call it. It was a good game for the Dogs because they showed a bit of bite and a reason why they should be messed with next season. They clawed tooth and nail to get those 21 points on board, but we talk about that pride jersey. Was that the moment that, derailed this Manly Warringah Seagulls season? It's been reported that, the players took a anonymous survey. All answers were anonymous. And it was sort of about the coaching and about how they can improve next season. And there was a few sticking points. Is Des going to be there next year? Now, from my point of view, it takes a Manly person to run Manly. We've seen it with Trent, with T-Baz. He couldn't do it at Manly. It didn't work. He had Jet Tuvey, yes. He sort of came on the back of, Manly winning a premiership, and not really and everybody sort of trying to put him on the same pedestal as Des and not giving him really much time to do so. Maybe the pride jersey wasn't the best thing to do. Maybe there was I'll definitely say there was a better way to handle it, but maybe as a group they should have talked about it. And as you said, this is another reason why they need to sort of look at this season and sort of throw it in the rearview mirror and forget about it. The question I have to you, Tony, is if the Manly board decide or Des Hasler decides to step down, who do you believe should be the next coach for the Manly Seagulls?
Well, it's a tough one. You throw me on the spot here now. First, I'll obviously address, do I think he is going to stand down? Obviously, it did get reported Sunday that he was given the ultimatum. It's, we will pick the people around you or we are going to stand down. So, I don't know. I think if you're Des Hasler, maybe it is time to say goodbye to Manly. If they're going to give you that ultimatum of, you're going to take who we do, you're going to coach how we want you to coach, or you're gone. Well, if I'm Mr. Des, then I'm telling them to get stuffed and I'm moving on. But obviously, again, you throw me on the spot here. I'm going to talk from if I had to get a coach from the current league that I think could move on, that could do the job. I'm honestly going to go after Justin Holbrook. And that might sound a bit crazy, but I think he has done stuff at Titans with a very young squad. Now, do I think they're going to go after Holbrook? Not a chance in the world. But I think he could be the coach to go in there, start getting rid of this dead wood, bring in some youthful players, start turning this season around, and he's not expected to do anything special. Now, you threw me on the spot. I'm throwing it straight back to you. Des Hasler walks away from the job. Who's taking over?
Shane Flanagan. It's the only coach out there that I would say has the CV to turn a club like Cronulla were. When he took over, they were running at about the 13, 14, 12 to 14 position on the table. And in a few years, he took them to a grand final win. So it does take some time. Now, this squad on paper, you do have this amazing talent on paper. You got the Turbo Brothers, DCE. Now you got Josh Schuster in the 6. You got Ruben Garrick, Morgan Harper, and the likes of so. But I believe it's Shane Flanagan to sort of take this squad. But as you say, if the board are going to implement all these conditions, it's basically you could send anybody into a boxing ring against Floyd Mayweather at his peak and say, hey, all right, you're going to fight this guy. You're going to wear an eye patch, so you can only see our one eye. We're going to tie one arm behind your back, and we're going to tie your feet together so you can't move at all. It just depends on what the board stipulate in regards to how they want to coach, who they want to pick each week. And as I said, it takes a Manly person to run Manly, and there's no other person but Des to run that team. And it'll be very sad if he does walk away from that club. And I just hope he goes to the right team and helps them out.
100%. Obviously, Des has done a lot by that club, and hopefully he does either get that, I guess, leave on his terms, or he does get to have a better season, because a coach like that does not deserve to go out on the back of the last 2 months of Manly performances. But Baxter, moving on, arguably the game of the week, arguably the biggest talking points of the week come out of this game. It was the Roosters 26 defeating arch rivals, the Rabbitohs 16. I was at this game. I did go to the new Allianz SFS Stadium for the first time. It's unbelievable. I'm going to let you tackle this one first because obviously you saw it from a neutral point of view, and then I'll give my thoughts on what I thought about the match.
Well, again, the coverage of the ground looked pretty good. Good to see that there wasn't many empty seats in this stadium like previous Rooster home ground stadiums. So it was good to see that way. But overall, it was a good game. A few talking points. We'll get into it. The Cameron Murray head knock first. Not even in the first minute of the game, and he goes down, and he's concussed now. There is some should I say? It is being reported that he's available this weekend. Now, we all sit as a rugby league community, and we sort of say we want to protect the players that are concussed. Now, I really look at towards the NFL when it comes to concussion here, because not only do the referees, if a player goes down, the referees can stop it. The coaches on the sideline, virtually anybody on the sideline or on the field can stop the game to say, "Hey, that player looks concussed. Let's stop for a minute and let's have a look." And also, their protocols off the field. Now you just like. You can quickly Google search this, and the NFL say there is no set guidelines on how many hours or weeks that this person should sit out due to a head knock. But usually it is a 2-week stand down. Now, is that something that we as an NRL community need to set standard, that if you go down, regardless of what minute of the game it is in, and you fail your HIA because you got concussed, you're automatically ruled out for the next 2 weeks? I wouldn't say no to it. I just don't think that a player that gets knocked out, in the first minute of a game, is then eligible to play the following week, even though he's passed all his HIA protocols off the field. It's a talking point. Then we go into the Latrell comments about being booed. I don't think it's a race thing. I just think it's more so you got two teams, the foundation clubs, and especially you got two foundation clubs. You got a player that went from one team to another, and that player is also a showman's show. How do you pronounce it? A showmanship. He wants to get the crowd involved. He wants to play on the crowd's edge of the seat, and he wants to bring the crowd into it. But yet when it's not going his way, I think he sort of just cries out for help and say, "Oh, it might be a race thing." I don't believe it is, nor do I condone anybody who is doing so in a racist manner. But I think if you pay your $2, or in this case, because it's the Allianz, your $200 for a seat, you have the right to throw your 2 cents at a player that's going to kick for a goal and know where the boundary steps lies and not cross it, and say what you want to say what you want about the player and whatever, but don't cross that line, and it's all good by me. What about you, man?
Oh, I think from a Rooster supporter, I think going to that new stadium, I was saying I went with my dad. Obviously, that's something we always do. We go to the games and walk in from, obviously, we went to the Cowboys game not too long ago when they did play at the SCG, but we parked in a similar spot. We got out of the car, and the whole way walking up to the stadium, it was almost tingles. Like, it felt like a homecoming, not just for the players, but also for the fans. Going back to a stadium now, yes, we do share it with the Waratahs. We do share it with Sydney FC, but it felt like we were going home. And although the SCG was next door, it never felt like a proper home ground. But we'll talk about, obviously, the Latrell situation. The Rabbitohs fans, they're quick to jump to and say, oh, the Roosters fans treated him poorly. But I was at that game. I was there early because I was watching the Roosters girls play. Every single time Hargraves came on that TV, they absolutely gave it to him. So I think it goes a bit of both ways. Hargraves copped it, Latrell copped it. Like you said, they're both showmen. They both live for that. If anything, it psychs them up. I was sitting just behind where Latrell took that kick from the sideline, where he was copping it from the sideline, and there was honestly nothing said. There was nothing bad said besides, boo, adjust for the win, do this, do that. Like all those sledges that you're going to cop. Latrell nailed it. He gave it to us. He probably could have given it to us a little bit more, but it was all done in good banter. And I think if the NRL gets rid of that, they lose a massive touch, obviously, on the game. But the stats, obviously, they're on the screen. It was a very, very, very close game. Obviously, Angus Crichton crossed over early. Tedesco then backed it up. Peter Momazoulis scored in the 24th minute for Souths. Sam Walker then caught Latrell in the line. Absolute brilliant try. Egan Butcher scored in the 43rd minute, and then Tane Milne got a try in the 50th and the 70th minute. Now, let's go back to Latrell. At the time, they were arguably, I guess, in the box seat. They were coming back. We were winning. The game was almost done. And I will get obviously to your point about concussions, but before that, the Latrell Mitchell sin bin. Has there been a stupider sin bin in the league this year where the ref says, listen, Latrell, the next person to do something stupid is going to the bin. We go to play the ball and he pulls it back towards with his hands. Like, is there a stupider sin bin this season? For me, no, that takes the cake. What were your thoughts?
I just think it was just a stupid. I don't think the referee needed to warn him for the next incident that's going to the bin. I think that just was a stupid act in itself. 10 minutes was deserved, and it is what it is. And he took it on the chin and had his 10 minutes on the sideline, in the changing rooms. But yeah.
Well, 100%. Like you said, I will touch quickly on the concussion. I think it is something we need to take a bit more seriously now. Obviously, I'm not just saying this because I want a South Sydney player to step out and not play this weekend, but obviously we saw what happened to Victor Radley, and these same Rabbitohs fans that are saying, oh, Cameron Murray passed his test, he deserves to play, were the same fans less than 4 days ago that said, it doesn't matter if Victor Radley passed his test. Look at his concussion. Look how bad it was. He shouldn't be playing. So I don't know if saying draw a line in the sand 2 weeks is the right idea, but I think we do need to say maybe a minimum of 1 week. You're out for a week, whether it's a 7-day turnaround, whether it's a 5-day turnaround, you are not playing that next game. And then after that week, we will assess you day by day to see if you're ready for that following week. But I guess if a doctor says you're okay to play, an independent doctor, then I guess by the rules you're allowed to play. But I guess we're going to see in 10, 15, 20 years' time how these players' brains are going. But obviously, I'll get your thoughts. I'm absolutely shattered. There is talks he will be back for the prelim if we make it that far. The Joey Manu injury, how big is that for the Roosters? And obviously, just the quick thoughts, because we will touch on that in the preview this week.
Yeah, it is a big loss. He is another showsman that likes to play on the crowd's edge of the seat, and he thrives off who he's coming up against. It is a big loss for you guys. Hopefully, you can recuperate and shuffle some cards around, and hopefully put a player into cover for Manu that can get the job done. Hopefully, he does well. Hopefully, he comes back all good, and he doesn't have an early Monday.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, we will move on to the next game. Like I said, the Roosters did get the win, cop that South, and we'll see you Sunday, same place, 4 p.m. But moving into two teams that have gone on that Mad Monday, it is the Warriors versus the Titans. It was the Warriors 26, the Titans 27. This was an interesting one. Now, look at those stats, 50% possession each, 85 to 75 to the Warriors completion rate, 9 errors to 11, 1654 to 1787 meters. The Warriors came into this game absolutely fine. Jesse Arthur scores, Josh Curran scores, your mate Dallin gets across the stripes, Brinson brings it back. Josh Curran goes over the line for his second try of the first half in, let's just say, ugly fashion with about 75 kicks in that try. Viliami Vele then scores in the 52nd minute, and that's where it kind of flipped on its head for the Warriors. Jaden Campbell in the 73rd, Paul Turner in the 75th, and then obviously Tanner Boyd in the 83rd with that all-important field goal. But I'll throw it to you first. Obviously, a big loss for the Warriors, given it was at home. But let's talk about Reece Walsh. He was on the sideline, pleading his case to the coach. Do you think the treatment of keeping him on the bench is, I guess, a smart decision given he won't be there next year? And B, is it fair for a player that has, although he is leaving, has given everything to the club? It's his last game in those colours. Surely you let him come back on and at least finish the season off. Like, you don't need to pull him there. You need to win that game for the fans.
Can I ask what I really didn't watch it until the last sort of 2 minutes before the final hooter went. Why was he off in the first place? Can you shed some light to why he was there firstly?
The only thing I can think is they got to about that 57th minute. They were looking comfortable and they started looking towards next season because he wasn't injured. He was pleading his case to go back on. He had, I think it was 2 or 3 try assists in that first half. And then again, they pulled him off. And I think it was just purely to say, you're not going to be here next year. Let's let these players play.
No, I think the coach did the right thing. This player's not going to be here next year, so he needs in his final game, in the final game of this season, they sort of wanted to test the rest of the squad out to see how they would be without him, and obviously without him showed that those 2 points were crucial to them. Andrew Webster, the new Warriors coach, would be looking at this one going, mate, I wish we kept him. Obviously, they get Chad Nickel-Coolstark from the Raiders next season. Maybe he's that sort of spark that the Warriors need to light their season next year. So, look, you're a player. You're being pulled off. If the coach says you're not going on, you're not going on. I've had my incidents in the past where, I'm sitting on the bench and I'm really wanting to go on, but the coach has not even looked at me, so I'm not going on. So it doesn't matter if you're in the first minute or the last minute. Coach says you're not going on, you're not going on, and that's just it. And you just got to bite the bullet and sit down and wait your turn.
I mean, I agree 100% with that. I just think in this instance, I think a final game, it means nothing. Give not just him the farewell, but the fans that have shown up that haven't seen this team there for 2 years. They deserve to see their best team finish off the season. And arguably, if Reece Walsh is on the pitch, I think they win this game by about 20 points. So obviously he made his decision. They've got to live with it. But we'll move on to another 2 teams that are going in to Mad Monday. It is obviously the Dragons and the Broncos. Baxter, my computer's having a spaz again. Can you give me a thumbs up if it is up on the screen? Beautiful. Obviously, the Dragons came out. Ben Hunt put them to bed. He put the Broncos to bed. He ended their season. Given by the stats, it's probably a bit unfortunate that is how the season did finish for the Broncos. Obviously, they had 52% possession. They completed 80%. They ran for almost 400 extra meters. Baxter, again, they played well, but this is not a team that, to me, said we're fighting for our life. So what's next for Brisbane? Is it that they need to get rid of their coach? Obviously, Walshy comes in. Is he the spark they need, or what's next for this side?
Nah, don't get rid of Kevy. I think he's the guy that they needed as soon as Wayne Bennett left. Obviously, they had that period there when they had what's his name from the South coach, starts with A, whatever his name is. He's only there for a season and a half, and he ended up leaving. I think this Kevy just he's saying, from what I'm hearing from players not in the first grade squad, but they're around those players and they can hear what's being said. What I've been hearing is he's saying the right things. The players aren't clicking. They got back Pat Carrigan for this last game. I thought maybe that that do the job and get that top 8 spot and make it hard for the Raiders. But something needs to give, and I think the players aren't giving, and they need to give a little bit more to Kevy, because Kevy, they've sort of gone through. It's not Kevy's fault, because they sort of, if you look at it, so Adam Reynolds, he set the world on fire at the start. Then he's out for a couple of weeks because he's back, and then he comes back and he's not the same. But then the teams around, the players around him have changed, and he's not really clicking with those players because he hasn't been playing. And then it just sort of cliffhangers. He just goes from top 4 round 18 to 9th round 25, and it just. He just, for Kevy's sake, I just hope he gets the same 17 players out in that park and they can do a job. Payne Haas, look, mate, make up your mind. If you want to stay at the club, stay at the club. Don't worry about this $1 million deal, because no front rower deserves the money that you're on right now. So just be happy that you're on it. Do your job and just roll on into a new year and for years to come, because, mate, you're on that pay packet. You should be leading by example what the forward should be doing. And to be frank, he ain't. And I just think there's a few players need to give a little bit more than they have this season. And yeah.
Well, I think you summed that up perfectly. So we're going to jump straight into your boys. It is the Cowboys. They did take on Penrith. It was 38-8 now. Again, the scoreline does not tell the whole picture. Penrith did rest a lot of players. Obviously, that is based on them. But I thought maybe up until about the 50th minute, I thought Penrith did hold their own. This side obviously did feature a lot of youngsters. The possession, 56-44. Identical completion rate at 77. 13 errors to 8. And obviously the running meters, you guys did blitz them by about 600. But obviously for Cowboys, they did what they had to do at the time. They moved themselves into second at that stage.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm going to give a massive shout out to my boy Lindsay. I thought he played really well. He ran a massive decoy run for that second try that did lead to it. The commentators seem to love him. But I guess for you, Baxter, obviously – only positives to take away. You had to win. You got the win. You got through it unscathed. What were your takeaway points on this game?
Yeah, I think you summed it up. Look, this is a game we had to win. We did win it. we put all the pressure back on the Sharks to get that win to get the win over Newcastle, and they end up doing it anyway. But look, we did our job. We're at home. We won. I was going to make a joke, but you've sort of killed it, so don't worry about it. Hats off to you, boy.
No, you got to say the joke now.
I was just gonna say, look, if anybody hadn't watched the game, don't worry about watching it, because Nathan Cleary, Lua, they're all in there. It wasn't a bunch of youngsters. It was their first string squad, and we blitzed them. They don't deserve to be in the comp and kick them out. But look, it was all junior. It was all SG Ball and Harold Matthews players, and hats off to your boy Lindsay. I thought he played really well, and hopefully he's knocking down the door and he can take over, kick our spot next season in that starting lineup.
Yeah, well, like you said, obviously a great result for the Cowboys. Let's just say the Cowboys 38 versus the Cubs 8, because it definitely wasn't the Panthers side. But we'll move into obviously the Sunday clash. It was the Newcastle Knights 16. The Cronulla Sharks 38. Again, this was a game that ultimately meant that game the night before for the Cowboys meant relatively nothing. But again, we spoke about it last week. It was not a convincing win by the Sharks. My worry for them is they hit sixth gear. They went crazy, and they're now coming to the back end of the season. They're carrying injuries. They're sore. They're not performing well.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the scoreline 16-38 sounds brilliant, but you were playing a woeful Knights side that did almost finish bottom of the ladder. Mm-hmm. You made 14 errors. You completed at 67% possession. You're coming up against the Cowboys side. I'm going to pop it back on the screen just quickly. A Cowboys side that completed at 77%. obviously they did make a lot of errors trying to play flamboyant football, but I just worry when push comes to shove, if you're making this many errors against the Newcastle Knights and you're conceding 16 points, what's going to happen when you come up against the likes of the Cowboys? And then if you were to lose that game, you're playing the Roosters or the Rabbits. So again, a scary thought for the Sharks side. They could bow out in straight sets, but what were your thoughts on this game before we jump into the final game of the round?
No, I watched this game with a close eye, obviously, for my boys to get second spot. But hats off. I've got to give my hats off to the Knights because even though the scoreline says that they lost by a big margin, they were really going try for try against the Sharks here. I think the Sharks got up like 12-0. They came back. Sharks scored another. Knights scored another 2, and we sort of really were just playing try for try against this Sharks side. And the Sharks, as you said, they've got some troops out. They weren't really clicking. Yes, all they had to do was win, and they got that home semi-final. And I will throw to you on the spot, but I'll give you a little bit of heads up. Do the Sharks deserve a home semi-final with only having an 11,000 seat stadium?
Oh, I mean,
I'm happy for them to have a home semi-final, but if your crowd attendance maximum is 11,000, then I don't think you deserve it to be host there. Now, yes, they are having some renovations done to the ground to make it bigger, and hats off to them. Good on ScoMo, the former PM, for getting the money. But when you're hosting 11,000, I just don't think you deserve it.
I think it's a tough one. I think for the first round of finals, I can kind of accept it now. Yes, the only one that really loses at the end of this game is the fans that aren't able to go to the game, and we will touch on that, obviously, in the preview. But I think for a first round, they've come in, they've done their job, they finished second. I think you need to give them that final now. I guess, unfortunately, there is renovations going on. That's why the crowd limit is so low. But when you think about it, it's only going to be 9,000 short of what Penrith is going to be. So, yes, that sounds like a lot, but in terms of it, it's not really that much when you think how many fans want to go to both games. So I think give them this game, but should they lose and have to go to the second round of finals, I don't think they deserve to play that one. I think that one needs to get moved to either a core or the SFS. But what were your thoughts on the game? Obviously, you've summed it up quite well so far, but just another result where they had to go through the motions?
Yeah, it was. They just had to get the win, and but they come at a loss with a few players down. And I'll say it now before we go into our preview in the next video. This is the best time to tackle the Sharks. They've been good all season, but when you come into the finals, you throw form all out the window, and you just pick, as a neutral, you pick the squad that is the most healthiest. Now, I look on the list, and Cowboys, not anything biased, but we have a very, very healthy roster. I think there's only maybe one person in our top 30 that has a little niggle, and I don't think he's even in the starting 17. So if that's what the pundits and the journos all go off, you pick the healthiest team. This is the best time to hit the Sharks because they're bleeding, and I hope that Craig Fitzgibbon can do some massive surgery in there and not just apply band-aids to open hearts.
Well, I don't think for one you hope that, because they are playing your boys this weekend. But you know what they say, when there's blood and there's Sharks around, they come swelling and they definitely fight for what they want. But we'll move into obviously the last game of round 25, the last game of the regular season. And fuck me, it was the West Tigers 10, the Raiders 56, the worst first half of football I have seen a team play. I read a comment somewhere, I'm not sure who said it, but it was the Tigers have just thrown the worst hospital pass I've ever seen in the rugby league, and they threw it at the coach, Brett Camorley. This could damage his coaching career. If we're being honest, this could damage his coach career. But Obviously, for the Raiders, they didn't even have to win this game by much. They just had to not lose by 54. They came out. I thought they were going to hit 54 in the first half. Obviously, the second half, they put the Q in the rack. They didn't score many points. The Tigers did get on the board, but if you're Melbourne, I think they then played a loser of Penrith and Parramatta. If you're those two teams and you're seeing this team put up that many points, you'd be a bit worried going into finals. So again, Ricky, Raiders, well done. You did your job. You probably put the Q in the rack a little bit in that second half, so teams can't scout you as much going into the finals run. But Baxter, your thoughts on this game? And fuck, I'm excited to see this team take on Melbourne this weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, Tigers fucked me up in my tipping comp. I had to tip them to get first, and I ended up finishing fourth. So, look, coming down into it, there was 1 point spread difference between first and fourth, and I was currently sitting second, and I said, you know what? If I tip Raiders, I'll come second, but that's not what it's about. I'm here to play first, and end up coming fourth, and oh well. But Tigers, yeah. Again, I know I love doing this to you and you hate it. I'll throw it to you on the spot. When the Tigers announced that Tim Sheens and Benji Marshall and Robbie Farah will be the new coaching staff for next season, why didn't they step in then and take control of this squad to then mold them, shape them, and get them playing in the way that Tim Sheens and Benji want them to play for future years to come? As you said, they just killed Noddy and his coaching CV. Now, if any smart person out there, that when future Noddy goes to apply for their head coaching role, and they go back and they look at this Tigers run and they go, mate, you didn't win a single game. If any smart person wouldn't even look at it, because it's a complete shambles. They're basically thrown him in a water. They've cut him open, and they're going, here, mate, survive. Try and survive. No life vest, no floating device. Just survive in the open waters, and left him out there bleeding. And I feel sorry for the bloke, because for a man who had no answer and no help from behind, it really shows that this whole organization needs a bomb up it, and to start firing a little bit more, because if that's the way they're going to treat a person like that, God help them. God help them.
I think in a sense, you just answered your own question. We knew what this Tigers side was. We know how they act now. It wouldn't shock me if Sheensy, if Robbie Farah, if Benji Marshall were somewhere in the background, but until the board makes that decision to move Noddy on, they also don't want to step on his feet. But on the second side of things, we know how shit this side is. We saw him cop 72 points to the Roosters. We've now seen him get blown off the park to the Raiders. We've seen him being beaten and battered for most weeks this year. The same way it's going to ruin Kamala's career is the same way it could ruin Benji Marshall's coaching career before it started. So I think that might be part of the reason why they said, listen, we're just going to sit in the back. We're going to let the season play out. We'll come in fresh. We'll make our cuts. We'll make our signings. We'll bring in these new players. I think, to me, that is the reason why they haven't stepped in. But Baxter, we will talk about that obviously more. We are pushing the 40-minute mark, so we will wrap up this preview show. But, mate, thank you again for joining me. Finals football is here, and we will be back soon to talk about